swear, if I had $1 for every time someone has asked me about allies, I probably would have like maybe $40 or so. I know it's not much, doesn't seem much, but it's a lot. So you know what, screw it. We're gonna make this video finally and get this done with. So if anyone ever asks me about allies in the comment section again, I'll just send you to this video. And if you are here because I sent you to this video, please check my other videos. There's a lot of playlists right there. It will help me a lot. It will help me a lot. It's like that. How did that even happen? How does that always happen? What the fuck? Okay, we're in the clear skies now, no lightning. Let's just jump right into this. There are 3 types of allies. I will categorize allies, entire allies, into 3. The first group are the damage dealers or offensive allies. The second are the defensive allies. And finally, we have the buffers. So let's break down the allies. First of all, go into the ally section right here. And now we are going to break down exactly what makes an ally, you know, good, I guess. So for example, let's take out Tianjiao Chu. Right here, this is the only section mainly you will want to focus for in allies. You might want to use the ally bond section over here, but I don't really value it that much. But I will still explain later what this does for you. But first, this is the most important section you will want to deal in, the ultimate skill section with the EX. Sometimes this EX might not show as EX for some allies. Some allies will have that as special right here. So keep that in mind. It's the same thing basically, and I will explain what both of them do. And then you have the passive, and finally you have your talent. Now these first 3 things here, the ultimate, the EX, and the passive, are for you as the player. These are buffs that will be given to you as the player. And while this talent right here is a buff for the ally, so basically the talent buffs the ally's ultimate, and the ultimate can provide some useful buffs to you. How do you get the talent? You get it by advancing your allies. You will unlock this once you've advanced your allies to, you know, the highest stage. So we know what talent is. What does ultimate do? Ultimate is the only buff allies have, or the only way allies get to deal damage in combat. If you click on an ally like Tianjiao Chu, yeah, I have no idea how I'm pronouncing that, you see he can deal 666,000 physical damage. But it doesn't end there. As an ultimate, you also provide other benefits to you as the player, increasing your elemental attack. And if we go here, Captain Airy, for example, she deals damage as well, while increasing your critical rate and critical damage. Now the EX is kind of like ultimate in a way. Ultimate deals damage and gives you buff. Most characters EX will not deal damage. Most characters EX are focused on just buffing, except for certain characters that their EX literally has to deal damage, because it just doesn't make sense regardless if it doesn't deal damage. An example of an ally like this would be Airy. I don't know if all the Aries are like that, but example is Captain Airy right here. EX deals damage still, but this makes sense because it's Airy. And if you've known Airy from the story, that is exactly what our EX ought to do. An example of another character from the story is Wedding Luminous, or any Luminous actually. You can see on taking fatal damage, this triggers giving you immortal, becoming immune to damage. This has been revamped. Before it was becoming immune. Now it's been specified that you do not take damage, so it's like an immunity shield in a way. So let's just check out any random ally again. We have Trip 0. Normal allies are usually like this. They do not give you any damage, but they just give buff. Now you have to think, do you want an ally that does this extra damage dealing stuff, or do you want an ally like maybe Mingzilu that doesn't even care about dealing damage but just buffs or debuffs the opponent? So that's what you want to figure out as well. Alright, so far we've understood ultimate and EX. Basically ultimate, almost all ultimates will deal damage. Like 90% of ultimates will deal damage, and then about 80% of them will be giving you buffs as well. There's very few ultimates that will not give you buff or any beneficial thing. An example is just plain old Luminous, who just deals pure damage, no buff, no debuff, nothing. Kind of sucks, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, the EX is more prone to give you buffs than deal damage, but there are certain EXs, or rather like the story characters, that will mainly deal damage. Like Airy, an example is Airy, and then you have Wedding Luminous that will not deal any damage at all but give you the buff because that's his EX. EX and Ultimate are very similar. Now this third thing, passive, is very different from the other two that we just mentioned. Passive is mainly buff. That is basically it. Passive is just first buff. There is no single passive I have taken note of, although there are almost like 50 allies now, if not more than 50 allies. There's no passive out of any I've seen that does damage. And finally, we've talked about the talent. This was the first thing we explained that boosts your ultimate. So you've understood all of this now, and this is why I said there are 3 groups of allies, because we are categorizing these allies by passive: the damage dealing or offensive allies with the passive that increases the damage they deal. We have the defensive allies that reduces the damage you take with their passive. And finally, we have the buffing allies that gives you buffs, various buffs like CDR increase, other allies that gives you critical rates increase or critical level and percentage increase, and stuffs like that. Those are buffing allies. These are the 3 categories of allies, and you will need to understand this if you want to build a team. And to get to building a team, you go to the center section right here. Now, normally if you just started the game, you will have only 5 allies on the side here instead of 6. To unlock the 6th ally, you will need to play in trials here, deities test, and complete up to a certain level of deities test to unlock the 6th slot for your ally. That's how you get 6 ally slots. Now, does it matter where you put each of these allies? I am not sure, and I do not want to give you guys wrong information, so I will just leave that up for you all to test. But I do know there are some allies that trigger a lot more than other allies. An example of that is Twilight Song Shavi. That's my center ally here. If she's a support ally, she does tend to trigger a lot more than others, and if she's a center ally, she triggers even more. Another ally that triggers more than other allies is over here. We have Mingzilu. He triggers a lot more than other allies as well. Now, what ally will you put in your center, and which allies should be for support? This can be influenced by 2 things. One will be your build. That's the first thing that will decide. The second thing will be this ally bond right here that I said we will talk about later. If this character is the center, we'll be tempted to have some of these allies stated in ally bond, because this will increase the ability of Tianjiu Chu as the center ally. Basically, all of this will help into increasing your own stats, because you inherit 12% of your allies' stats. Now, I personally do not care about ally bond at all, because I don't view it as valuable enough compared to just having certain types of allies that will just fulfill what I want overall. But it's up to you to decide if you want to do that, if you want to use ally bond. Now that I've understood all of this, there's something you should know about choosing the position for your allies between a center ally and a support ally. If you want to select an ally, these 3 things here will also influence your decision in selecting an ally, because only this character's passive will activate continuously for you. Now, what I mean by this is that by having Twilight Song Shavi as my center ally, I am continuously always receiving 2% less damage, because that is her passive. Now, this also means that an ally like Eri, whose passive increases my critical damage by 15%, will not be in effect for me, because she is not my center ally. But if Eri was to be my center ally, I will gain instantly this 15% damage increase. Pick a center ally whose passive you really want, because every other ally's passive will be useless to you. If you want me to prove this, we are going to go right here and let us check out our critical percentage. Our critical damage is 153% right now. So I'm going to take a picture of this. Now we're going to come over here. I've just taken note of all those stats, and we are going to switch Twilight Song Shavi with Eri Isigi right here. So I'll select her, and we will put Eri as our main. Remember, she gives you a critical damage of 15%. So we appoint Eri, and we come over here and we appoint Twilight Song Shavi with the passive of damage sustained. There we go. Now we come over here and we check our critical damage. You see, we have finally gotten that 15% damage boost, but I will also just, gotta make it big. Okay, there we go. And we can reduce this right here and drag this right here. And now you can compare our stats. This was before we switched Eri to our center ally, and this is after we switch Eri to our center ally. Now you can see right here, I don't know if my avatar is obstructing, so I'll drag it a little here. Our critical damage, we got the 15% critical damage boost. But if you remember correctly, Eri was always supporting us. But how come we didn't get the damage boost? That is because only the center ally's passive is triggered. And if we go back here you see my critical damage has reduced by 15% again. So that proves that only the center allies passive is taken into account. Now, does this mean the other support allies are useless? No. Like I said, you can use your support ally based on the bonds, or you can go further like I am and use them based on something else, which is their ultimate and their EX. Don't forget, we have 3 things here that could be useful to us. So the ultimate and the EX are something that still triggers even when your allies are supports. They can still come up, pop up, perform one of these skills, and then disappear for a couple seconds. Now this means you can use allies that could be very problematic as support. For example, you could use an ally like Mingzilu that pops up with his ultimate, giving you any of these buffs, or pops up with a special and disables your opponent's field, or creates a zone that disables your opponent's field, or skills rather. So you could do this if you are playing a control build or a damage focus build. Mingzilu is still going to be useful, especially if you are just starting the game. This is an ally that will always be useful for you regardless of your level. If he's as your center, Mingzilu can increase your multi-strike, which is amazing for assassins, while the special right here disables your opponent's skill, so it's like a silencer, and also gives them or the opponent a debuff by reducing their speed, which is also perfect for assassins, by the way, because assassins deal more damage to slower opponents. So this is like made for the assassins. This doesn't mean other classes can't use this, but I'm just giving you this example because some allies are just great for certain classes. And that brings us to that same old question: what build or what do you favor more? Do you favor more defensive? Do you favor more offensive? Do you favor buffing? So those are the 3 types of allies or categories of allies I know and I value, and I think you should build your ally based on that. Now, of course, I will give you some recommendations. An example for buffing allies, I just mentioned it a lot, it's Mingzilu. If you want to go for control build as well, Mingzilu is still great. You can also throw in someone like an Angel right there, an ally that has the ultimate that increases your CDR. Might not be useful for some classes, but the EX is what we want. This time 0 EX and knocking away. If you take note, you will realize that Angel has the same EX as Tianzhou Chu. Is this because they are, father and son? I don't know. Heck, you can even go further and have other allies like Radiant Nono, who gives you buff in various ways. So we have Nono here. I think Nono is one of the characters that gives the most buffs for things like ammo penetration, which increases the damage you can deal to your opponent. Or you could go further and have allies like Captain Airy, whose ultimate can increase your critical rate and damage while also dealing damage to your opponent. So this is just basically a damage focused build. So again, this comes back to what build you want to use. I've been saying that a lot, and I'll keep saying that allies can be diversified. I think they are the one thing in this game, aside from your other things like your build and stats, when you are equipping things into your gears right here. Allies are the one thing in this game that you can truly make yourself unique in. Now that brings us to the same old question about ally bond, because allies of certain sense, like the captain allies, have the bond with other captain as well. So you got to figure out what you want more. Do you want this bond? Do you think it's actually worth it to remove other allies in your center, or rather support positions, to have that bond activate? Do you think it will be valuable for you? It's your choice in the end. So if you want to go defensive like I am, you could always grab the Shavi. I think all Shavis are kind of useful. With the healing, you can go a healing build because Shavis usually recover your health, so you can go healing with Shavis, and the support Shavis will trigger to heal you, but I don't want to go that route. I'm going for Shavi because of this damage sustained is reduced. But funny enough, there are allies who have it better than Shavi because this is a gacha MMO in a way. So of course, they're going to power creep some of the allies. An example of an ally that has it better than Shavi is Nocturne Finger right here, who has the same passive like Shavi to reduce the damage you take by 2.5%. So he's 0.5% better than Shavi in this aspect. But that is, again, do you have this ally? Do you want to get him? If you don't have him, you can try getting him from here. Can you upgrade this ally as well? Because there are certain allies that require special things to be upgraded. For example, we have the Forest Nono right here that requires the Forest Summer Bloodborne gem. So you have to be quite careful about this because you cannot really get this gem outside of, pay to winning, or for the event to come back, specific events that hosted this type of ally, you can't get it again. And which is kind of sad, because some of these allies are kind of unique in their way, but you know, it's still no, so she still has the armor penetration stuff right there. So now that's everything about allies. I hope this video has helped you what types of allies they are, the importance of various things in allies, and how the buffs you get from allies work. Now, how do you trigger allies to work more often? Attack. Just attack, spam your default attacks, spam your normal attacks and stuff, spam your skill points. There are certain classes that can trigger allies more than other characters. An example will be the assassin, who has a lot of AoE attacks and stuff that, you know, they attack a lot, not just once, they keep attacking a lot more, so they'll have higher chances of triggering support allies and normal allies. Also, if you're attacking the blade masters more often, their void skill can deflect the attack, so that does count as them kind of hitting you and attacking, so they can proc through that. It's just, you just need to understand these various things and it should be a lot easy for you. Anyway, that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I hope to see you all in the next one. As always, have fun, take it easy, and bye bye.